Tutor, where school is made simple. Let's go. In this video, we're going to look at one of the biggest problems for students in pre-calculus and trigonometry, and that is the unit circle. As we see here, we have 16 ordered pairs that correspond to different points, and each of these points represents the sine and cosine values of a particular angle. Now, given that we have 16 sets of values, that means that there are 32 numbers to remember here. Historically, students have been asked to memorize all 32 of the values along with the 16 angles that they represent for a total of 48. That's a lot to memorize. As I look at this, looking at just the values in the first quadrant, if I start to look at these numbers and look specifically at the x, I see the x value going from 0, and then I see a 1 here, and then I see a 2 here, and then a 3 here. So I'm wondering if there's some connection between these numbers and the final results. And it happens to be that there are relationships between these numbers. So let's look if I start out with 0. And then I take the square root of 0, and the square root of 1, and the square root of 2, and the square root of 3, and the square root of 4. But if I look at my unit circle values, most of them have the number being divided by 2. Well, so let's take each of these and divide it by 2. And I get the square root of 0 over 2, the square root of 1 over 2, the square root of 2 over 2, the square root of 3 over 2, and then the square root of 4 over 2. So now let's simplify. If I'm looking at this, the square root of 0 is 0, over 2 is 0, square root of 1 is 1 over 2, 1/2. Square root of 2 cannot be simplified, so we leave it as the square root of 2 over 2. Same for the square root of 3 over 2. And then finally, the square root of 4 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. So how can we go back and now take this newfound pattern and apply it here to our unit circle? Well, let's look at it. If we see our x is decreasing and we started at 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and then we go in the reverse order for the y decreases from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to 0. And notice that in each of these pairs, our x and y add up to 4. So now let's look at these as ordered pairs. Okay, so now we have our 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, same as we did before. So now let's take each of those terms and take the square root. And then take each of those terms and divide it by 2. And then finally simplify it. And now we're down to numbers that we start to recognize. So these are the values, and we can find all these values just from knowing 0 to 4, and then applying a little creativity. Now, how do we find the numbers going from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2? Well, they go in order. So if we were doing this, each of these reflects over here. The only difference is because of algebra 1, we know that the quadrants have different values. In quadrant 1, x and y are both positive. Quadrant 2, the x is negative. So notice that each of these correspond to the same one, except the x is the opposite sign. Same thing here. Same values numerically, but the opposite sign. And now we're going to apply this same thing here. The difference between quadrant 2 and quadrant 3 is that the y is also going to be negative. So the x and y are both going to be negative in quadrant 3. And then likewise, going from quadrant 3 to quadrant 4, the x is positive and the y is negative. Same values apply in the same order. Notice 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come back around the whole way. So in this manner, you can go and actually use a unit circle without memorizing 48 values, but simply by understanding 0 to 4.